On this 50th episode of In the House, we sit down with a buddy of ours, Adam Harrison, to take a deep dive into Build Different. Through this discussion, our goal is to provide examples of ways we can all elevate our professional and personal development. We talk in depth about accountability and follow-through, clarity and initiative, and how to increase productivity and focus even in this modern culture. We hope this episode provides some valuable insight, and as always, thanks for listening. Upgrade your construction layouts with Trademarks. These heavy-duty vinyl markers are designed to withstand harsh job site conditions. They're durable, waterproof, and perfect for marking locations for electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and more. Available in trade-specific colors, Trademarks make communication with your team simple, professional, and reliable. Whether you're recording benchmarks, elevations, or centerlines, Trademarks ensure your layouts stay intact, even under heavy traffic. New customers enjoy 15% off at checkout. Visit trademarklayout.com to get yours today.
Yeah, give me some of the I want to try. I've never had the Angel's Envy. I want to try some of that. That's whiskey, right?
Yep.
Did you bring this from the house, Michael?
I did. Nice. I often pour into
He actually bought it at the store and then downed half of it.
Yeah, I'm this much in.
Dude, at that stage of the project, I get it.
I'll probably like it. You seem to have good taste. What about you, Adam? You good?
I'm a whiskey guy.
Great.
Yeah.
No pressure or anything, but we only have 2 bottles here for you.
Okay. Well, I feel like
we got coffee. We got
did
water.
we oversell it?
We got water, coffee. I mean, you name it. Yeah. If you need anything,
awesome.
Don't be afraid to.
No, I feel like Michael
pause.
and I are due for a drink.
Yeah.
Great.
I feel like
100%.
It's
100%.
celebratory, like making it on the other end of that
Got
benchmark.
over the finish line. Come on.
Let's go.
Are you
We're
finished?
up against
finished?
our various challenges. On his scope of work,
Yes.
we're 99% there.
Oh, no, not 99.
Uh-oh. Just that little retainer, huh?
Right?
Well, yeah, there's always hey, it ain't,
You can't give him the whole 100.
it ain't over till it's over. You know what I'm saying? Till the keys are in the owner's hands.
Oof.
That's true.
Yeah.
And even
Anything
then,
can
it might
happen.
be months later. You just never know.
It keeps falling off the wall. It's weird. I have to keep putting the vent hood back on.
Dude, I ordered the glue on Amazon. There wasn't really like a return.
That's what we're here to
rate,
talk about.
like-
We're here to talk about the grade C glue you can get on Amazon. This brought to you by Elmer's.
I wish that I would love for Elmer's to sponsor this.
Elmer's would probably love to sponsor this.
Yeah.
Or Bluebell at that.
Bluebell
Hey,
would-
now
oh,
you're
we
talking.
could be all
Dude,
sharing
yeah.
a gallon
Do you have
of ice cream
your
right now.
Brenham people? We can get on the inside.
That'd be
of the
amazing. Yeah.
Instead of, ice cream and whiskey blend really well
Yeah.
together. So
What do you call that? I mean, there's Coke floats. Is that just a whiskey
that's
float?
a good question.
I feel like it's time to coin a term for this.
Come up with something.
Something fancy like affogato.
All right, Bluebell. Like what?
Have you ever had an affogato?
I've heard of it.
It's coffee and ice cream mix.
interesting.
Okay. I've never had it.
Oh, you know, it's
I'm not
amazing.
as cultured as you are.
Guys,
Sorry.
this is the best thing ever. I don't even like coffee, but if there's ever an affogato on a menu, I order it
Really?
Oh.
for sure.
Okay.
100%.
Is that a dessert item or is it a?
It can be a dessert, or you can be like coffee shop, but it has ice cream in it, so it's kind of
both?
It's kind of a dessert, really, however you spin it. But you can pretend like it's not, and that's what I'm here for.
All right. Well, Adam, I appreciate you coming on. How would you describe what you do?
Whew. Man, I am a 37-year-old craftsman who has been in the trade since I was about 17 years old.
Okay.
I have been very fortunate to experience a large majority of trades. I've worked under master electricians. I framed custom homes for a long time.
Wow.
I think the scale of those projects created a curiosity for me of like getting into different trades. I think currently I would identify more as an artist because I pour a lot of soul and intention into my projects, and they are pretty much all one of a kinds. But I'm still a craftsman at heart. I still general contract projects, but I definitely am a tools on general contractor. I think my projects have grown in scale due to collaborating with other local trade partners and being able to execute, some pretty awesome things.
So you're kind of like a freelance guy. You're a general contractor, but you kind of do a little bit of everything.
Right. People
you partner with
necessarily, I think people hire me more for me to complete projects more than me just to manage other subcontractors to complete projects.
Yeah.
And I think I've been able to build a personal brand here in Austin of just like really cool, unique, random projects. I would say that the Austin market has offered that and opened up a very creative side of my brain that I've really leaned into the last like 6 or 7 years.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
It's interesting you bring that up. I've heard from one or two people who are builders or contractors that have moved from other places, other markets, and that's one of the things that they've said is that in others, some of these other places, there was a default thinking of contracting as not performing any of the work and very hands off. Yep. And so I like that you have that like. They're like, no. In my work, I'm hands-on.
Yes.
I'm owning what I'm doing here.
Well, yeah, I think there's a relationship with that too of like physical execution, like making something with your hands. It's a very like primitive connection, and that's something that I love, and I love. Awesome. I think my community is with people who also love it.
Yeah.
I think we all kind of attract that to each other. That's why we work together. And
100%.
it's like, we love this.
Yeah.
Like this isn't necessarily just a transaction-based task. This is, we're going to step back and we're like, Michael, hey man, you remember that hood vent we made like back in 2025?
Awesome. Yes. Come on. Yes. Yeah. Full transparency for the audience. Ab and I just completed a killer giant. I mean, how tall is that thing?
12 feet.
12 feet tall. Kitchen vent hood,
147 and 13/16.
And you know it. Yeah, you do.
Pretty exact.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And full, and the whole thing is kind of peanut shaped. And look, and gosh, I wish maybe I'll take a picture. Maybe we could put
that'd be great, Michael.
Tie a picture to
that
our,
way people know what we're talking about.
That would be fantastic.
I know you have plenty of pictures.
Come on.
I've a few.
Yeah.
Waiting on all the final finishes to finish out. Then
and then you get the
pictures.
come on.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to see it. Out of all the trades, what do you think is your favorite? Carpentry?
I love carpentry.
There's just something about carpentry that's
there is, and I think what my passion with carpentry came from framing carpentry, and like starting off as a young teenager working in the trades for us to come to a job site and there's just a concrete slab and a stack of lumber and we walk away and you see the shape of your home.
Yeah.
I think there's a pride that really developed at a young age that really like pushed me to do a lot of framing carpentry. But I was working for one of the top framing carpenters in Georgia, where I'm from, and there's a lot of details in that. We're building on a lot of radiuses, a lot of barreled ceilings, and I think the detail orientation that you may not normally find in framing carpentry, I got a taste of that and got to learn next to some really talented people.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But I think it created a curiosity the last 5 years of steel fabrication. So on the last few of my projects, like I have a friend of mine, Hector, who helped me on a winery project that I did. And instead of him hiring a helper, I was like, hey man, I have a ton of work. I want to help like kind of design all of this and help you build this together. So it was a hands-on way as the general contractor to be my fabricator's helper and to be like hands-on, not like we had some plans, but we went pretty rogue on those. We really wanted to kind of set the bar like really high on a lot of these details. So to do that hand in hand was a lot of fun. And I think the strength and rigidity that I'm used to with framing carpentry, I got that with steel. And man, now we're like spanning, 50 feet.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just opened up a different realm.
Yeah.
And for that, I also love steel fabrication.
That's awesome.
That's cool. Yeah.
What's something that has kind of pushed you lately in terms of whether it's been learning something or it's been a type of material? I know you worked on that moss wall recently. Just what's something where you've kind of been, it's kind of
moss
feels
wall,
a little outside my comfort zone. what's
I would have to definitely say the hood vent. I think that there are many elements of that project. I think I've done a lot of finish work in my life, but fine work, man, there are just so many levels to this. And I knew when I first talked to you about it, I had a friend who was just like a mad scientist in the fine building world, had CNC machines and was very savvy in the programming side of it. So I decided to jump in the deep end with that. And man, it was a giant humble pie. I've built some cool things in my life, but just to be around that level of detail orientation and just like crunching numbers to such a fine degree was really uncomfortable. But then it's to see that and to see one, I feel like is the beautiful collaboration between human effort and AI with CNC machines. That was awesome. And it's also opened up a different side of my brain. It's like, oh man, we could totally make this with that help. And I think, whereas I personally could not remake that hood vent by myself, but the lessons that I learned from that, I feel like are going to affect the level of execution that I'm going to have for the rest of my life. That's
awesome. It really like one of the things you talked about, you're like, hey, some of these tools, like you mentioned CNC machine, an artist mentality would come to that an artist might come to that and say, I want it to be all handcrafting. Right? Because if my hand's not making it, then how am I, helping? How is this an expression of my work?
Right.
But I'm not hearing you say that. I'm hearing you say, no, these tools, I needed to use these new tools to make something this complex, something this detailed,
of course,
and was able to implement those into making something awesome.
I think thought and execution is also like a big part of the efforts put in on building something. It doesn't have to be me swinging a hammer or working a chisel. The amount of screen time, holy cow, of designing something like that's execution. I mean, yes, it's a click of a mouse, but ultimately I think I enjoyed that collaboration because I am used to standing back and like, I made this entire thing with my hands,
right?
Like no machinery, obviously hand tools, but stepping back and looking at that 12-foot, steel hood vent in this awesome house is like so grateful for a CNC machine.
100%.
I just have a lot of. I'm just very open to collaborating with different mediums, whether it's tools or materials. I think
it's awesome.
Yeah, it turned out pretty sick.
It's awesome.
And what a cool testament to your attitude as far as being a builder or a craftsman is. Stepping outside of your comfort zone, like you said, that's a huge area of discomfort that a lot of people try to avoid. But man, what an opportunity for growth, right? And the lessons learned and the things, like you said, that you can now take from just this one project and now you can apply to many different projects.
It changes your entire lens as you look at projects or people call you about projects. It's like, oh yeah, dude, we just crushed this super detailed thing. Of course I can build squares and rectangles. Like,
right. It's interesting. One thing I see often when talking with either owners and designers or with craftsmen, trades, subcontractors is when we get into area where it's not typical. I'm working right now on a flooring project that I would put in that same category. And there's a temptation to say, gosh, this is outside of my comfort zone. And so I'm going to make the cost, just throw a number super high, or B, try to change it to be more typical. Right. So you're either changing the scope or you're changing the cost. And I think there's something to be said about taking on that challenge. I mean, obviously we're all trying to get paid at the end of the day, right? We got to make a living.
Of course.
But we also, to get to that level of, what Lonnie kind of coined as that built different, you have to take some chances. There has to be some risk involved there.
Absolutely. Yeah, which, I mean, great segue into that. I mean, that's definitely this overarching topic that I kind of want to dive into a little bit and get into some of the meat, of what it means to build different. And so just to recap this idea of build different. So it comes from this idiom of like being built different, right? So somebody who's, stands out from the crowd, or somebody who's exceptional or possesses unique qualities, and that set them apart from everybody else. So that kind of got me thinking, like, well, how, we as builders, I think oftentimes we get into this routine of, well, this is standard, or this is code, or, whatever, the minimum threshold is. And it's like, sometimes you gotta break free of that, or think outside the box and be a little bit more creative. So it's like, how do we build different? How do we set ourselves apart? Not just in individuals, right? Our individual performance, but, as a group, team, as a company, as a team.
Yeah.
And that team might be different from project to project. So, I think it's good to also try to think about it on an individual level. And that way, no matter where you are, you can elevate that team performance.
For sure.
So some of the, more detailed topics that I wanted to try to dive into and just get a little bit more clarification would be like accountability. How do we keep ourselves accountable as individuals, or keep the team accountable? I don't know if there's any examples that you might have that come to mind about accountability, and it could be keeping yourself accountable, or even keeping,
right.
which might be harder, but keeping the leadership accountable.
Right.
That's not often easy, is to like point to somebody who's in a position of authority and say, hey, this is not right. This is not the standard that we should be meeting. Right.
Yeah.
So that's not always easy, but I don't know. Let's kind of dive into that, or explore that a little bit.
Well, one thought that maybe I can tee you up, Adam, on this, but in just thinking about the project that we did together, and when I think of accountability, one of the key pieces of that is like being honest and open, because you can't hold someone to something that there's not, if it's not clear what's going on, right. And there were several times throughout when you were making this awesome Venhood that we had some conversations, of honesty, hey, whether that was schedule related,
right.
whether it's price related,
right.
whether it was build related, different things. And I think that was one of the pieces that really allowed us to build accountability with each other.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
yeah, I totally agree. I think communication is huge, and especially at these high level, very minute, detailed builds. Like we need to kind of communicate the expectation along that journey, because from what we talked about at the very beginning of the project is going to change. There's going to be material shifts. There's going to be
100%.
finishes that maybe it look good in this light, but not at the end of the day. So
right.
I think communication is major, but I think having the gumption to actually be real and communicate with you and be like, hey, Michael, I told you I was going to install this thing on Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's 3 a.m. on Sunday night, and I don't think I'm going to finish it.
Ain't happening, man.
Yeah. And I think it's uncomfortable conversations that we have to have, because I can only imagine, the line of communication of you communicating that to all of your other subcontractors that are on my heels, waiting on me to finish my scope.
100%.
But without me, I feel like I try to give enough of a heads up, but at the same time, shit happens when it happens.
Yeah.
And I think we just have to kind of tuck our prides and be like, hey, man, I know I set this expectation. I'm working my hardest to get this done, but it's going to probably shift. And I think that gives you the opportunity to communicate down the line, whether it be, your superiors, other project managers, other subcontractors. I want to give you that opportunity, because if I don't do that, then that's going to kind of create some like friction and static on the job.
100%.
Yeah. So that's a good way to put it. And I think that like part of being accountable is like knowing that, it's not always about you. Like there's more pieces to the puzzle other than just you. And so what is it that Wade always says? Like clarity is kindness.
I don't know if that's what he said, but I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know if that,
I feel like I've heard him say that before.
I'm pretty sure I've heard him say it like 100 times.
Yeah.
But yeah, clarity is kindness. So, like you said, communicating before something becomes an issue, right? Not day of.
Yeah.
Hey, I know I said I was going to be there this day, but I'm not going to make it. Right.
Yeah.
In advance. And that gives the on-site contractor time to, schedule people or pivot and make arrangements, because like you said, there's other people on your heels who are maybe waiting for your scope to be completed, and then they can begin theirs.
Right.
So,
and the flow of the project I know is important. And whereas this project I only played, a singular role on one key element, I know that there are 100 other things that are moving around. So I think the experience of managing other projects has given me that, the drive to want to communicate and make sure that Michael doesn't get put in a situation that I've been in before.
Yeah.
Because people kind of wait till the last minute and then they just don't show up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, one of my pet peeves is when a sub comes to me and says, Michael, we're at a standstill because we need a certain material. And,
my God.
If it's like, hey, we need more screws or we need more, more wood or whatever it is. And I'm like, guys, you could have told me this, 3 hours ago, and we could be continuing to work right now. But
I know what you mean. That drives everybody nuts.
Come on.
Like, it's like, the work that's involved. Hey, I'm running low on screws. I can go get more screws.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a hard thing.
No,
that's such a dumb excuse for low productivity. But so I think another way of accountability is just just holding yourself accountable. I think sometimes it's easy to maybe point the finger at somebody else and say, well, this is the reason why this is late, or heck, everybody used COVID as an excuse they're still using COVID as an excuse. Like, but holding yourself accountable, and even when you don't look good, even when you look like the bad guy, it's standing in that moment and saying, you know what, I screwed up, this is totally my fault, and just taking the blame and just eating it. And that's not always easy, but
it's a part of it.
It's a part of the job. Like sometimes you just have to get a little egg on your face and go to the client and be like, hey, I totally screwed up. Like,
talk to me a little bit about that, Adam, from a standpoint of a lot of the stuff that you do, you are self-performing, right? So it might not be a big team, but you still want to have a high bar of quality and excellence. How do you hold yourself to that?
I think what has worked well for me over the years is being a tools-on general contractor. And I think the dynamic, the environment that I'm able to create is my subcontractors are seeing me perform. And I take a lot of pride in my pace. I take a lot of pride in, my execution. So when they're watching me do that every day, it does kind of create this almost environment of like, oh man, he's doing some really cool stuff over here. So man, we got to focus on this detail over here. And I've enjoyed that from a sense where everybody's pride comes out and everybody's like bragging about like, hey man, remember you showed me that one little detail. Look how we just knocked it out of the park.
That's awesome.
It's infectious.
It really is. And I think from an accountability standpoint, holding myself accountable and just like owning my mistakes, but still being there and staying late to correct my mistakes, and people seeing when they're leaving to go back to their families, and I'm stretching out the lights. I think that environment again, it attracts that accountability. Not saying it works every time.
Yeah.
You can always tell like who like there's some imposters here.
Of
like,
course.
there's just somebody who's not really jiving. They're not kind of, they're not really feeling it.
Yeah.
They're, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
100%.
everybody, because like I said, it is infectious. This attitude of like, man, this is such a high level home, and we got some freaking badass people here, like really high performing people. Like, it makes me want to step up my game. Like, that's what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to use infectious again, but
Contagious.
contagious. Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Had a brain retardation there for a second, but
Brain fart.
yeah, and it's like you can always tell who's there, who's like just to collect a paycheck. Like their heart's really not in it.
Right. And those get weeded out, I feel like, fairly early on. I think when you're doing like high level project after high level project, obviously you have that one working experience on project 1. You're probably not going to bring them on project 2.
Right.
But I think even when you do have like a good team of people that you have like good solid working experience with, you have to be compassionate that people are going through stuff in their lives. They might be great businessmen or, great craftsmen or whatever it may be, but man, they might have a loss in a family, or they might, have stayed up all night long with a sick kid. And I think, in the service industry, when we work with not only clients, we have to be compassionate with our subcontractors, the people we're working with, because you never know what they're going through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that does present some challenges as far as like holding people accountable, because it's like, hey man, I got this deadline. I'm sorry you're going through this, but like we still got to get it done. But I think there is just like a lens. You have to have compassion, because you never know. You never know what people are going through.
That's true.
No, that's really true. I recently was working with a subcontractor who I was under a tight deadline and had brought them in to kind of help and push the project along. And they, after about a week of working on their scope of work, they started showing up less and less. And, my gut was to start hammering them, hey guys, why aren't you here? What's the deal? And I didn't, but, and then, this guy came to me later on. He said, hey, listen, I've got some problems, some personal stuff that I'm going through, and I actually need to leave the job site. And so he had to step away from that work. And, we found another crew to jump in for them, but that's an example of that where, you can't. I didn't know what was going on. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. On your Gantt chart. You
right. Yeah. It wasn't like in personal family problems in these 2 weeks, it's just like,
well, we should add like a little plus or minus, just
figure it out in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think super important, just to your point of we're always dealing with humans.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think the personable nature, I think you're really good at this just naturally. It's like when you're getting to know people and it's not just a transaction based thing. It's like you kind of have an idea of what's going on with people's lives. You can kind of like feel people out and be like, oh man, Michael's spirit's really high today. Or like, Michael
hey, it seems to be dragging. Yeah. What's going on here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Well, I kind of want to go back to what we were talking about clarity, because that was actually one of the next areas of discussion I wanted to dive into. But like this idea of like clarity and initiative. So, like asking the right questions, or trying to gain understanding. When something is not clear, and learning from your past experiences or failures and successes, and using the knowledge that you've gained from those experiences. I mean, how many problems? I mean, I want to say there's most problems on a job site are probably 90% because of poor communication.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And part of communication is not just, I told him.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, you have to make sure that the information that you're giving is whole, right? There's nothing missing. There's no part missing from the information you're giving, but you also have to make sure that the information is received and it's understood.
Right.
And I think that's a key component that, I sent him an email, or I left him a voicemail, or I texted him. It's like, okay, well, that's not necessarily getting the message across. He may not have understood what you were saying. Or, you thought of one thing, but he thought of it completely differently. So part of communication is making sure that your vision or your message is being received the way that you want it to be interpreted.
For sure.
So
I think everybody has different communication styles.
For sure, 100%.
Like how you receive information might not be the same way that I receive information.
yeah.
That's for sure true for me and my wife.
Oh, dude.
I know that's shocking. I'm sure that's shocking, but
Yeah. Dude, that's everybody. Right. For sure.
But I think it is like when you have those experiences with a subcontractor or your wife, it's like, okay, the message was not conveyed clearly or effectively this way. So now I'm going to draw a picture.
Yeah.
Or now I'm going to write it down. Or maybe like a screenshot of something as a more effective tool of communication.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
instead of like me, looking at a text message communication from a project manager and trying to communicate what they're saying to somebody else, I screenshot it.
Yeah.
I don't want me to filter something with my brain and then them filter something and be like, wait, hold on. What
came
you
out
guys talking
completely
about?
different.
For sure.
Gosh, I love, one thing I love is, we here in Texas work mostly in a bilingual building community, right? A lot of Spanish, a lot of English. But I always say that everyone is fluent in building. And so I can communicate with someone, just because we can, whether it's drawing it out or just pointing at things, we're both thinking along the same lines.
Yeah, I love how the trades can merge the worlds.
Yeah.
I've been to South America and it's like, hammer.
Yeah.
Square,
This
and then,
right here.
Or you
like,
can
let's
point
go
at
to
something
town.
and tell them it's crooked. That's always a good joke amongst whoever.
Do you speak Spanish?
Más o menos. Definitely not like
come
Michael.
on,
Yeah,
let's
Michael's
go.
very good. I'm jealous, man. Michael, you're very good.
I don't think Michael ever says anything serious in Spanish. I think he's just like talking shit the whole time.
That's one of the things I
He's just
realized.
hazing everybody.
I would say my Spanish learning, it was not fun until I learned how to joke.
Right.
The only problem is that I just try to take all my English jokes and make them into Spanish, and they still don't land. And I don't know why. What the heck?
You're just an unfunny
I don't know.
person.
Yeah, it's just
You just gotta live with it.
I really got to work on that.
There's no cure. You're just
I was really hoping that in a different language it would be funnier, but
Yep, sorry. You're lame in both languages. Oh man,
so good.
but yeah, so I think I'm like you. I'm more of a visual communicator. I love sketches, pictures, because oftentimes like I'm very ADD and my brain just gets lost in the weeds. Like whenever it's this long, typed out description of something, I'm just like I forgot where I started. Like I don't even remember the first sentence. So just send me a picture. And dude, that's just how my brain works. I like pictures. And also like following up. That's a huge tool to make sure that your message was received, or you received somebody else's message the way they intended. So like I do that a lot where it's like I'll take a phone call, and again, I'm probably in the middle of doing something and I'm very distracted and I'm listening, but I'm also not focused. And so, we'll go through this conversation, and afterwards I'll follow up with an email or a text and just say, hey, thanks for the phone call. This is how I understood, what needs to happen, or this is how I understood what you said. Right. Is this correct? And, just again, getting clarity where something is vague.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's a useful tool. Is like always,
that's great.
always follow up.
I think it takes a few times of not following up and things going awry to be like, I'm going to send this full email.
You know
as
what?
soon as we
I'm
get
just
off the
going to
phone.
ask one more time before I cut this piece of wood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times it's bit me in the ass because like I couldn't quite remember. It's like, this is probably what they wanted.
Yeah.
I'm like,
then,
nope, completely wrong.
Not right.
I think that's part of clarity is getting the clarification where it's needed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's
I love that. Okay. So give us a little preview, if you can, of this next project that you're going to be working out, and talk about a little bit with. All right, you're going to be working new place, new new environment, new scope of work. So it seems like clarity is going to be a really important piece of that.
For sure. Yeah, I think this project isn't as detail oriented as some of my other projects.
Totally.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely going to hone in on that 16th of an inch
Of course.
on this siding install.
Yeah.
But this project for me is exciting because just the nature of the project and the location of it. So there's a gentleman named Brent Underwood who bought an old silver mining town just outside of Death Valley National Park. And I think in that area, there are many abandoned mining towns. So I believe Brent is from Austin. He had an Airbnb here, and during COVID, him and a bunch of buddies decided to buy a ghost town.
That's awesome.
Brent is, just a very animated person. I think he's a great storyteller, and I think that's played a huge role in his success with his YouTube channel, Ghost Town Living. And he has just been giving these like bi-monthly updates of all these discoveries he's finding, him like rebuilding certain things and bringing function back to this town. And I think through that platform, he's had a lot of brands reach out wanting to collaborate, obviously, just to be a part of it. And I think that's what I'm excited about. It's not necessarily installing siding, but to go out there and kind of be a part of that journey with him is pretty exciting.
That's awesome.
He is rebuilding the American Hotel, which was the original hotel that was in Cerro Gordo. And he is putting a lot of good intentions in it. He's not just throwing a building up. And I'd say in a very remote area, I think that's kind of uncommon.
That's awesome.
Because not a lot of people are looking, but like I think that he is in this for the long game. And I respect the fact that he's, doing fluid applied, weather resistant barriers and exterior insulation and, doing a lot of fireproofing intentions. So I'm going to install a radiata pine that's gone through a dual modification process. So this, hopefully, if it's installed correctly, should last him a very long time.
Come on.
But yeah, it's
is it pre-finished?
It is not. I will probably coat it with some type of wood oil just for longevity, but he does want it to silver out and patina and kind of give it that kind of old rustic Wild West look.
Blend in with the rest of the town,
which it'll stand out for a little while. But
that's gonna be so cool.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, and it's like when I'm on scaffolding installing this awesome siding, you'll be looking off in the distance, and you'll see like Sierra Nevada and like Devil's. I think that's gonna be an adventure. I think I look at projects as kind of like is it adventurous? Is it going to be fun? Am I like gravitated towards the client? I think for me as a small business, I think who I do business with becomes more and more important. And just kind of getting that vibe from Brent and we've only seen each other in person once. But I can just tell through his demeanor, I can see through his intentions with his videos that he cares. And that aligns with me. Like I care probably more than any of my clients care about these little details. But the fact that we're aligned on that makes it worth a 24-hour drive from Austin, Texas to Cerro Gordo, California.
That's awesome.
Jeez, that's cool.
A part B to that's really important for me, and it has been on a lot of my projects, is who I'm building with. And I have a close friend of mine, Cody, from back in Georgia. He's actually on the road right now to Austin. He's going to road trip with me out to Cerro Gordo.
That's awesome.
And then my friend Dave from town, he's also going to come out there. And we all train in some form of combat sports. So we're just going to like build adventure and train the whole time. So just like, I don't know, it's a recipe for an experience. And I think that's what projects are for me. It's like, okay, let's see who are the players of this. What are we doing? Is this going to be like really cool or kind of meh? But I think the variables that matter the most to me are who I'm working with.
That's awesome.
Like how
Super
I'm
cool.
spending time with people. Are we in alignment, or is this just somebody's fifth home and they really don't care about this little detail that me and you have been staying up, losing sleep over?
100%. 100%.
That's cool. Man, it's like that got me thinking about like, man, when you think about joining the construction industry, you might, as a young person, you might think of track homes or,
Mm-hmm.
even commercial,
Yeah.
maybe, even custom homes, but you don't really think about like the journey or just the broad potential that you have if you go into the construction industry and go into business for yourself. Just the world is your oyster.
Big time.
I mean, you go all over the country. I do. You do whatever project you want to be involved in, and that I think is really attractive. That's super cool that you can travel the country and do all these amazing jobs. Like that's really cool, and that's not something I think as a young person you think about when you think about joining the construction industry. For sure. You think about digging ditches and
Right.
laying roofs in
Yeah.
the hot summer.
Right.
Like
And
that's construction.
Yeah.
I did a whole lot of that in Georgia. That was life.
Yeah.
And again, I think the Austin market, or just the move to Austin, was like kind of nerve wracking. I'm like, oh man, like I'm pretty savvy on my tools, but am I going to be able to get any work over here?
Yeah.
But I think that move showed me how like transferable the trades are all over the world. I don't even want to say just in North America. I mean, I think work ethic, can go anywhere.
Yeah.
But I was very fortunate to come into Austin and pick up work immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So I would encourage anybody to, I mean, yes, staying in one location and developing community and a reputation, I think is important. I think Austin will always be a home base for me, but I think the opportunities that came in Austin are what are going to help me promote myself in just places I like to go.
Yeah.
Like I think I'm going to go to Panama in the next few months and try to learn some more about bamboo construction.
Heck yeah.
I think that's another tool I want in the tool belt.
Yeah.
But
Let's
yeah,
go.
I think
awesome.
there's a lot of culture that you can learn in the trades, and it doesn't have to be, okay, I'm just going to tape and float all day long every day. I'm just going to build the same 2,000 square foot home all day, every day. And some people like that. Like some people love the repetition of it, and they like hone in on those little incremental details that make them great at doing that. Like I am just a complicated creature, and I just want to do something different every time.
Me too.
What does that phrase mean? The world is your oyster.
The
does that
world
even
is
mean?
your oyster.
Where did that come from? Just a
That's a good question. I need to look that up.
side topic. I don't know.
If anybody know, Mike would know.
I don't know.
That's what I'm asking you.
I was just trying to think. I was trying to dig back into the world is your
World is
oyster.
your
I don't
oyster.
know.
Okay, I'm gonna
have
look that up.
Yeah, I'm gonna
But
ask a Google.
yeah. So the last area I wanted to dive into, which I think is like super important, especially these days, is productivity and focus. So, in this world of, social media and everybody having a smartphone and information being readily available at your fingertips, and, we live in a world of distractions. How do we maintain focus, and how do we stay productive? And that's especially critical on a lot of projects where, you might be hourly, you might be paying time and material. So, that happens quite often. So productivity is huge, and it requires a lot of focus. So it's like, how do we get there? How do we make sure that we're on track, that we're meeting our deadlines, and we're not losing sight of what the goal is.
Great question.
I think there's a generational shift happening in the trades right now. And yes, we have a lot of young guys that are, or girls who are looking in the trades. It's like a pretty obviously good profession to get into kind of early on.
Yeah.
But there was a gap. And as a 37-year-old builder, I take a lot of pride in representing kind of like that next generation, and the pace is a very big element for me, not just, hey man, I can build this house right here. It's like, hey, guess what we got done today? And I think that this age of sharing information, and a lot of the building industry has gone like mega on Instagram. I think there's a lot of benefits to it because you're like, I follow tons of like framing carpenters, and they're like, give a daily update. I'm like, holy shit, they got that much done in one day.
Yeah.
And I think being able to see that is possible, instead of just, okay, in my geographical sphere, this is the pace that I'm used to witnessing. I think that kind of helps merge those lines. And it's like, there is a brand of excellence and hard work that I feel like as primates, like we pride ourselves on, like, you know, being the toughest and, and getting the most done and being the most productive. So I think kind of like getting back to that, you know, it's like we can kind of bump shoulder, like, yeah, Michael, this is what we did.
Yeah, come on, let's go. Yeah, let's go, baby. Man, that's so good. It makes me want to go get something done. I think it's really important with projects that are longer time as well. Like, I think naturally through just use of computers, maybe social media, phones, things, is such an instant gratification culture. It can easily develop, you know, where I can only do things if they are, you know, X amount of time. And so what happens when you're, you know, driving to that job site for the, you know, 100th day, 1000th day in a row? And how do you continue to push that forward? And that doesn't mean that each thing isn't unique. It doesn't mean that it's a, you know, repetitive thing. Every day's a new day. But definitely a big question there.
Yeah. There's another component to productivity and focus that I think we're missing, which is knowing when to say no, which is hard.
It is. It's a good one.
It's hard sometimes, like,
really
to know when you're at your limit.
Yep.
And to tell a client or a builder, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do that right now, because you lose productivity, right? If you're stretched too thin, or you know your you know, resources just aren't there to accommodate, you know, this additional work, you gotta say no.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah, that's good.
Do you have any examples of that? Like, maybe you're on a job site, and I know this happens a lot because I'm guilty of this. Is like, you know, you bring somebody on to do a certain very specific scope, and you're like, hey, would you mind maybe taking a look at this over here? Hey, while you're here, well, while I got you, I got a whole bunch of stuff I could have you do. Right? Like, this one task was just this was the interview, but now I got a whole bunch of stuff I want you to do. Right?
It's hard for us to turn it down, because I mean, if we're capable human beings and we're out, you know, we are a profit based.
It's your livelihood.
Exactly. Like, oh yeah, man, this is great.
Yeah.
I think from my experience as a small business, at first I desired growing and like running multiple jobs. And at one point I ran like 15 jobs at a time, but it took those stressful years of running that much to where when I have 2 projects going on and somebody hits me up and they're like, hey man, I have this super epic project, you know, we don't really have a budget for it. And I'm just like, I can't take it, you know, because it's like, yes, it would be so cool. And yes, you could make a little bit of money, but then your life kind of dwindles away, and then you're working 12, 16-hour days. You're working through the weekends. You're not sleeping right. That affects everything going on in your personal life. Yeah. I think there is a such thing as balance.
Yeah.
To some capacity, at least. Like, for sure. To manage that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even, you know, with people with families, wives and children, like, there has to be a balance. There has to be a cutoff where it's like, no, you know, at a certain point, like, yeah, I mean, you basically own me for this amount of time, and I'll be as productive as I can in this window. But it's like, man, outside of this window, I have a whole nother life that, you know, of other lives that I have to attend to and that I'm responsible for.
And those other lives, they deserve a good version of you.
Exactly.
Not an exhausted, worn out, super stressed version.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
Exactly.
100%.
So that's, I don't know, like, saying no, I think sometimes that might be the hardest thing to do, but it might be totally necessary to keep your sanity and your productivity and focus.
Your quality. If I'm stretching things out, I mean, man, I'm not staying late to focus on this one little detail. We're just going to throw some caulk in there, paint over it, and keep it moving.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's pushed me just to take like 1 or 2 projects at a time.
Yeah.
Like I want that version. I want to give my clients that version of me.
Yeah.
Not like Adam's making a ton of money, but he's stretched out all over the, Austin, Texas. And we don't know where to find him.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, man, what do you do for fun? You just got back from a big old,
Pretty epic trip.
Epic Colorado trip, huh?
Yeah, man. I tend to do this, as a single, unmarried, self-employed guy. Like I tend to, like, I'll focus on like a lot of work for like a chunk of time, like a 2 or 3 month period, so I can take a month off.
Yeah.
And I did that, kind of Q1 of this year. And then March 1st, I went to Colorado for a snowboarding sabbatical. I
Snowboarding sabbatical. Gosh, that's good.
25 out of the last 30 days.
Normalize that.
I think I can still see your
See
goggles.
Dude, I'm so proud of my goggle tan line. Only the locals have that.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I can still see it. That's amazing.
Goggle tan line.
Snowboarding is big for me. Like, I think adventuring in the forest and being able to travel on a board is magic. And I think spending time in nature in general, I think is just good for the soul. The last couple of years I've gotten into boxing. So I do a good bit of training and sparring kind of when I am in town.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm all over the place. Awesome. Like, I think it's hard to separate my work from my passion, because it's the same thing, it's like when I get home at night, I'm like, oh shit, man, I could make this and this in the garage right now, and it would be so cool. And then I get like focused on that, and then that becomes like my free time. But a lot of my friends who are not in the trades, they don't really make things. I always invite them. Like it's like, for me, I love like showing people how to weld.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
How many times do you like go to somebody's house and be like, hey man, you want to weld something? Yeah. Or like, or just to make something in general. I think there's like a communal aspect of that, of like stepping back after like hard physical effort and like, we made this.
Yeah.
And I find myself doing that all the time, and that's kind of fills in some of my free time.
It's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to build stuff all the time.
You invite people over and have arts and crafts time. And
yeah, I'd love to do it more often, and I think we could really like set the stage pretty high for something like that.
Come on,
give some classes, man. Start teaching people.
Last time I was over at his place, we were burning a lot of things.
We were,
Michael. That could go a lot of different ways. What were you burning?
It was wood.
Was it the beginning of the night or the end of the night?
Yeah, big bonfire guy. I think when I built the winery, I put a lot of intention on trying not to like send a lot of stuff to the landfill. So any wood, cardboard, or anything that I could burn and not like emit a bunch of gases, I just do bonfires like every night.
That's cool.
And I think there is like a really interesting like shift in our brain when we like stare at the ocean or we stare at fire that allows us to process things. And at the end of almost every workday at the winery, I'm like cleaning up my trash for the day, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm over there thinking, I'm like, holy cow, that stud third one from the left is 1.5 inches out, and I got to move that tomorrow. It was just like this interesting way to kind of like process through stuff. But I think because of that, I also love having bonfires with people, and it was my birthday, and what more rich of a time than to have like a bonfire with my people.
So good,
and just like sit around. It was awesome.
So good,
so good cool vibes.
So good, dude.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
We're super excited to see this next California gig and take some pics when you're done.
For sure.
Yeah, I want to see it for sure, man.
Yeah,
Adam, man, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate you taking the time,
of course,
coming to
Thanks
see us
me.
and shoot the bull, man.
Yeah, man. Love what you guys are doing. I
appreciate
think
that. Yeah,
it's really important. A lot of the people that you have had on here have been mentors or people that have inspired me.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it has taken a geographical move into an area around so many talented people. I mean, it is insane the talent that's in Austin, Texas. And I do think that one of the beautiful things of the connection of social media is that you get to learn from them almost every day.
Yeah.
And I've greatly appreciated that. And I love that you guys are just sharing more of that information, because these conversations, maybe not this one, but other, with other interviews, it's like, man, the right person's going to hear one little detail in these conversations, and it's going to affect how they operate for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
That's true,
I
man.
think it's a beautiful gift that you guys are doing for the building industry.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and that's certainly one of the goals behind this podcast is to really shine a light on some of the amazing craftsmen that we get to work with every single day. You know, it's, you know, I can't express enough gratitude or thanks to really the, you know, I'm not responsible for building the houses that we build. You know, I just kind of manage the process, right?
You're very responsible.
I get that, but in the same sense, well, sure, but in the same sense, you know, I'm not the one, you know, with my tool belt on. I'm not swinging a hammer. I'm not like putting the pieces together physically. Right. So it's like we're relying on all these very talented individuals to see this vision come to life. Right.
Yeah.
And
but we do all need each other.
Of course. Yeah.
I think to execute
100%.
at these levels, like, man, like I don't want to have to take on your tasks, you know, like the
100%.
fact that we can lean on each other and be like, all right, Michael, man, I'm backed into a corner. What, you know, can we talk about this, you know, instead of it just being me solely. So I think that the efforts that you guys put in are critical. Like, holy cow, you have to herd a bunch of cats all the time.
That is true. That's 100% true.
That is true. All right, Adam. Well, hey, man, great chat, and I really appreciate you coming on. It was absolutely amazing. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you guys.